Hello and welcome back to another video of Woodworking by Edgar. In this video I will continue working on my rowboat, which I had started on the previous video. So this will be episode 2 of my rowboat rebuild. In this video I will be measuring and documenting what I have, and then we'll take the rowboat apart and just see how much rot there is in there and see which pieces I can save and what I can reuse on the boat. So I've cleaned the boat out a lot, got rid of a lot of the leaves and dirt and stuff that was inside. Going to start measuring and documenting what we have here. You can see this, my screwdriver, I was able to stick in to the transom even up at the higher end. So I am going to replace the whole transom, and I will start out by making a pattern of the transom, and then I will measure each of these frames that are here, and I will be making patterns of all of these areas where the frames are, and that will help me to recreate the boat pretty much the way it is. There is a couple of things that I'm going to change in the way the boat is built. Down here there are some chine logs. They're 1.5 by about 2.5 inch wide pieces that go the full length of the boat down each side. So I think I'm going to eliminate those, and I plan on epoxying and fiberglassing the bottom of this boat, and it will hold the bottom of the boat to the sides, and therefore those chine logs will not be necessary anymore. So I have clamped a piece of plywood here on the end of the transom, and I'm just going to mark all the way around the transom. Then I will subtract the 3/8 that the sides and the bottom are from this, and that will give me the exact size of the transom. So this is a piece of 3/8 inch marine plywood, and I will just mark the back side of that around, and that gives me the exact size of my transom. So that marks out what the transom is at this point, and I will lay out a new transom on top of this using this as a pattern. I have this piece of plywood here which I have laid on that chine log, and I'm going to put this piece up along the transom and mark this angle here. And that gives me the angle that the transom is in relationship to the boat. The bottom of the boat is flat all the way through, so this chine piece is a flat piece that goes all the way through the boat. I know that by putting this on that chine piece, that is the flat bottom of the boat, and so this is what the angle of the transom will be. There is a piece here that goes up this way, and then another board that goes from here and then across to and stops at this point. And I believe that this may have been a repair to the boat done at a later time, because on this other side they don't have any of that on it. And if it had been something like to support a seat or something like that, it would have been on both sides. There is a seat support here, which I will take and measure that to make sure that that goes back in its proper place. This seat support is for one of the seats that I have here, so that will be going back in the boat. The bottom frames are all about 1 3/4 high, and so I will make up new pieces that are that 1 3/4 high. So I will measure from the transom where each one of these frame pieces is. This one is 24 1/4 to 25 inches. So now I have made a piece here which will become my pattern. It is smaller than the area that's in here, and I have just a small piece of plywood, which this happens to be around 3 inches wide. And so I will mark out this pattern. I will put this piece here and make my mark this way. And that gives me my angle of what that piece is at. And same thing here. That marks those pieces out. I have set the bottom of these on the chine boards, and I know that that bottom should be about 3/4 inch below that, but you can see that this is a little bit higher here because that's where one of the runners is at the bottom. So the bottom is distorted right now. But anyway, I will mark this side, and I need to be careful where I put my weight, because if not, I will go through the bottom of this boat. Then I'll mark this side out. So that makes a pattern for this section here. This will mark where the top of this pattern will be, across at this spot. So when I want to mark my real pieces out, I will just take this piece of plywood, same piece of plywood that I use, and I will put it on my mark that I made, and then I can mark the outside of this on my boards, which will be the identical width and angle of what the inside of this boat was like. So I will do this at each one of the frames, and we'll have my patterns for all of the frames that are here. I am also marking these out at the wider side of the frame, which the frame starts narrowing, the boat starts narrowing as it goes this way. So this is the wide side of the frame, because when I get ready to put plywood on these frames, I can do what's called fairing of the pieces, because these should be actually at an angle this way, but I don't really know what that angle is. But once I put the frame together, I will do what's called fairing, and will plane off on one edge of the frame to make it so that it has the correct angle. Now I have all my measurements and my patterns made up. I'm going to start taking some of these frame apart, and I probably will save as much of the pieces as I can just to compare with what I'm building. So I have most of the frames out of the boat now, and as I had thought, this section here I think was a repair. Looks like there was a piece that was put in here, piece of plywood, and then these pieces were put in to support it. I don't think that was there originally when the boat was built, but I believe that was a repair that was done afterwards. There also are some pieces of metal along the gunnels, and I'm going to take these out and save them and reuse them. I'm going to cut the gunnel off about here, and then I will scarf that later, hopefully save this from here forward. I'm going to cut this plank off here. We'll try to save the rest of that. I've been taking this boat apart here, and just thought I'd do a quick little history lesson. When I first started doing carpentry, we used to use a lot of these flathead screws like this. And so we used to have these screwdrivers. They were a ratcheting screwdriver, and this was what was used before that there were cordless drills or impacts. And this you would pull out, and then as you pushed it back in, it would twist the tip. So this way would be one way. You would flip this little lever inside here, and then it would go the opposite way, or you could just do that and it would lock it. And if you put it in the center here, it didn't turn either way. So these took special tips. They're different than what our bits are today. That's what the bits look like, the end of it. It had a little slot on the side of it. And there were different sizes. This is a smaller one. There was an even smaller one than this. And I don't remember there being a bigger one than this one, but it could be. But I remember driving these flat-headed screws for hanging cabinets, and it would take you hours and hours to drive these screws. And when Everett Covell built this boat, everything is screwed together with these flathead screws. The gunnels are screwed. All of this plywood is screwed into the bracing inside, into the frames. And all of this framework and the gunnels and everything inside this boat is all white oak, which is extremely hard wood. So I just can't imagine driving that many screws, but that is the way the work used to be done. And so there was many hours spent driving flathead screws. So I have peeled this board back off of this bottom board. In the transom, it has some of those flathead screws that are holding it on. This transom has a lot of rot in it, but it's still holding these screws very well. I was able to get this board off in somewhat one piece, and I was able to save it, and so I will use it as a pattern, cutting my new board. As you can see here, there is a flathead screw driven in about every 1.5 inches into this transom to hold that sideboard on. And then along the bottom here, you can see where that there's these screws here. So there was a screw about every 1.5 inches all along the bottom of this boat, holding this bottom board on at the bottom. So these boats, in some ways you can say that they were pretty simple to build. They're a flat bottom, so there is no complicated curves, there is no steam bending. But when you take this apart and you see the workmanship that goes into these boats, the workmanship that was done on this boat, but also on a lot of boats that were professionally built by little shops all over America. The workmanship is really exquisite. The fitting is perfect. A lot of complicated woodworking joints actually, but just very well done, all with hand tools. Hundreds, thousands of these flathead screws that were driven in, thousands of nails that would be put in and clinched on the inside. And when you look at this boat, everything is very well done. Unfortunately, the years have taken its toll on it, and at this point a lot of it is not savable. But I'm still trying to save the front, the bow section of it, and just to preserve some of what was done. When I put this boat back together again, I will be using some more modern methods of putting it together. I am not going to use thousands of flathead screws on it. I will be epoxying it back together again. I will build it. It will look very similar to what the original boat was, but like I say, some of the construction methods will be different, and I will be fiberglassing the bottom of the boat and epoxying everything together. So in some ways it will be a boat that is in the spirit of what the old boat is, but the construction methods will be different from what the original boat was. I now have this bow of the boat standing up so I can access the bottom of it, and I will probably first make a pattern of the bottom and then take some of this apart, just to show you a couple of things here. Where the stem comes down on the front here, I have a couple of spots where I probably have to do some repair work to that. I will try to save this stem up here, but this part here, which is a keel which goes on down through, I'm going to replace that. So I'll take some of that apart and see how things go. So the rot on this one side here actually went up further than what I had hoped it would. So I cut it off here. I'm going to try to save the rest of this piece up here, up to the bow, and we'll see how that goes. It is coming apart quite hard. These pieces are screwed in about every 2 inches here, so I probably will have to try to cut those screws off because I don't want to damage a lot of this board that's left here. I know cutting things out with a Sawzall sometimes looks pretty crude, but I did leave a little piece on this edge here that I will now take off with the bar. Now I have moved the bow of my boat out to make room for building frames and starting the work on reconstruction inside my shop. So now my boat has all been taken apart and the bow section has been moved outside so I can work in my shop again. On the next video, I will start building frames, cutting out the plywood, and getting ready to put some of these things back together again. Hope you enjoyed these videos, and please remember to subscribe, hit the like button, and ring that notification bell.